So I know it's a couple of years away, but let's talk 2017. Now, you remember what the F1 strategy group said a few weeks ago? They said, we want Formula One cars to be a bit more Karun, like the cars that you used to have on your wall when you were a boy. Pictures of aggressive-looking cars. They want them to be quicker as well. So how are they going to achieve that? Well, let's have a look. And the answer isn't as straightforward as you might think. Talk us through it, Karun. We've got the new car, the 2017 car on the left-hand side, and this year's Mercedes. Yeah,
they're looking at a wide range of changes to the front wing, the rear wing, the overall dimensions of the car, as well as, the side pods, the floor, the diffuser. It's quite a massive aerodynamic change, reminiscent of what we saw between 2008 and 2009.
OK, let's just pause it there, because we can immediately see here that there are some differences. We've got a more sort of sculpted, aggressive-looking front wing, and it's longer as well. Why are they going to make the cars a longer wheelbase?
Well, they're changing the entire look of it. If you look at the profile, we've obviously got the flat-fronted front wing in the 15 car. 17 is going to have a more sculpted sort of front wing, the longer shape, different angle on the side pods as well, a more aggressive shape. They're defining the angle of that leading edge of the side pod and going to wider tyres.
This is interesting, isn't it? It doesn't look that much wider on the animation, but there you have it. It's currently 42 centimetres. It's going to go to 45 centimetres, a wider rear tyre. If we just run it on...
And they're trying to, by doing that, just sorry to interrupt, but it's to give them more mechanical grip and more tyre grip.
OK, so the first thing that you see when we look at them head-on-head is that we're getting rid of these rather tall, narrow rear wings that we saw introduced for the start of the 2009 season. So going back to, it's not quite the 2008 rear wing, but immediately, I think, to my mind, Karun, this looks better. If we just have a look at the way this is low-slung rear wing down here compared to this sort of high one, I think this looks instantly better, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've kind of gotten used to this one, but I remember when they first came out in 2009, we all went, whoa, what is that? I remember it was Williams, wasn't it, released an image from Kemble Airfield, and everyone was just sort of aghast with what came out, but we've got used to it.
Yeah, OK, so that's how it looks in cross-section. Now, this front wing is interesting, because this is still, they're allowing the, 8 or 9 element front wing that hurts the cars aerodynamically. Are you surprised by that?
To me, that's a little bit disappointing. I'd like to see them define the front wing in a more, as a simplified front wing, so that's it's less sensitive. When they're following other cars right now, the loss of front downforce is colossal, and therefore the overtaking isn't as pure, because we have to rely on DRS and things like that. I'd like to see DRS go away. I'd like to see a less sensitive front wing and more ground effects. So you got more downforce overall from the rear, but also a less sensitive front wing, so they're able to follow people, like in GP2.
I agree wholeheartedly. Let's talk about the rear of the cars, the ground effect as well. And at the moment that you can see on the right-hand side, we have quite an intricate diffuser, and they have to have that because there's not much space that they can deal with. But what we're suggesting, and the current teams are looking at for 2017, is a much wider and a longer diffuser as well, so we can actually have more of a ground effect. But I don't think keeping the stepped bottom on here, do you think that's going to be enough? What about if we go to flat floors? Rather than having this little step that comes down here, why not we just have a completely flat floor?
These are things that need to be tested, Ted, and I think they do need to be bold and be willing to make a big change. When we banned active suspension, for example, that was a massive change. And when we made, the changes for 2009 to make overtaking better with these bigger, higher rear wings and things like that, it didn't really change the overtaking, did it? So I think we need to think about big, bold steps. So, yeah, maybe it is a flat bottom. Maybe it's a longer tunnel that runs all the way from the front. It needs to be evaluated. OK. The other thing from the side view that we're going to see is that some of these barge boards, these aerodynamic devices on the side of the car that we currently see here, are actually going to be made, well, I don't know how we describe it. They're going to be made... angular.
Yeah, more swoopy, more laid back, more aggressive looking. And there'll be regulations as well to govern how much more reclined they look, as is the rear wing as well on here. Yeah, absolutely. I think some of it is obviously aesthetic, but also I think there's an element of trying to get the airflow
towards the rear of the car, and particularly, you know, the angle of the rear wing leaning it backwards as well. Again, it's got a twofold effect. One is obviously rear downforce is going to have an effect on that. They're changing the definition, or rather the size, I should say, of the diffuser and also the angle of it. Look at the 15 car, much smaller, and the 17 one, a longer and slightly different angle as well.
Yeah, so this explains very nicely how they're going to change the diffuser to give the designers much more area around the diffuser to create more rear downforce, which is going to achieve the, 4 to 5 to 6 second per lap performance gains, quicker per lap performance gains that they want from these cars. But I'm not sure just an extra big diffuser is going to achieve that. And Charlie Whiting is saying to the teams at the moment that he's going to let them have much more time in computational fluid dynamics, CFD, to actually achieve these lap time improvements.
I understand that part. I understand, you know, their targets, but they have to factor in these 4 black things that touch the ground, because all of that extra load and all of that extra energy needs to be put into the tyres. And that's why I think people underestimate how important this next tyre contract is, because whoever gets the next tyre supply contract has to be willing to work with all this extra load and extra, you know, speed and grip and lap time that we're all talking about here. It has to be translated to the ground. So, you know, I think all of this we've talked about is aero, but we have to factor in what's going to happen on tyres.
Yeah. OK, well, let's just recap the changes then as we go from front to back. So we're going to have not simplified front wings that Karun would have if he was in charge, but we'll have a wider front wing as well, more aggressive. Going to the back, we're going to have a change to the tower barge boards, making them more reclined and getting more air to the back of the car as well. And what was in 2015 at the back of the car will change for 2017 with a bigger rear wing, but also not changing the single exhaust.
Yeah, so, you know, all that noise about noise looks like it's going to stay the same for the moment.
OK, so plenty still to be decided. Nothing set in stone at the moment, but that is the preliminary look at a 2017 car so far.